Okay.
We're 5 minutes late. Okay. It's 6 p.m. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and do our pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. So for the agenda today, we're going to table the DTMS film showcase for June. Other than that, I don't think there are any other changes.
No.
Well, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve the agenda that's amended.
I'll second motion.
Motion by Mrs. Esquivel and seconded by Mr. Plowman. All in favor?
Aye.
Move on to the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting for April 14th, 2025.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for April 14th, 2025.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Plowman, seconded by Mrs. Esquivel. All in favor?
Aye.
We will move on to item number 4, reports.
All right, so any questions for Ryan on the operations report?
I didn't have one.
And any questions for any of the principals on the building reports?
You want to speak? Just kidding.
You guys are more than welcome to speak.
Yeah.
Or the athletics report, any questions?
I just wanted to give a shout out to Ms. Culberson for being nominated for
Yes.
National History. Teacher of the Year for National History. I just want to give her a shout out and hope she wins.
Yeah, well, I was gonna try to get her at the G board meeting. So,
Yeah, so I hope she
Yeah.
gets selected.
Yeah, that's a very, even just being nominated.
Yes.
I think there's only 1 or 2 in New Mexico nominated.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it wasn't a lot.
that's
Oh,
good.
wow.
Well, I hope she wins.
Yeah.
Are we on athletics? now?
Yeah, any questions on athletics?
I did want to speak to the principals because I've been getting a lot of complaints that there weren't end of year awards for all the grades. I'm sure you guys are aware.
Mhm.
I know you had them for, is it 5th through 7th?
Yes,
You
that's
had
it's scheduled for Wednesday. And right now we're in the process of calling all the parents of those students who are being awards to make sure
Okay,
that they'll be there.
is that something you think we could bring back?
Well, I think we do a lot during the school year to recognize the students.
Mm-hmm.
And we do like Water Day where everybody's included,
Yeah,
and it's not coming from a place where we don't wanna celebrate them. It's
yeah,
coming from a place that we want every child to be celebrated. And when you have awards like that, there's a lot of people that don't go support the students. And so
Mhm.
that's where it's coming from.
okay.
But parents are welcome to put things together
Mm-hmm.
and be happy to support it.
Okay. And then the 4th grade, they had one just because they were moving
They
on
are
to
moving
5th.
on. And
Okay,
so that's why we have decided that pre-K is staying there, kinder's
Mhm.
staying there. So then if we're doing it for them, why aren't we doing it for first, second, and third?
yeah,
So that's why the decision was made to do that.
okay. Okay. Anything else, guys? No.
Is there anything on athletics?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that was all the report. Truancy report, relates, people were out, state events and stuff like that, so I'll have
No
April and
excuses.
May and
No
June.
excuses.
Yeah.
Just kidding. They have their
Yeah.
laptops, right?
Yeah,
Just
they
kidding.
could've- yeah.
Okay. So Board of Education issues?
Right, so just reminders, the law conference is the next conference coming up for y'all, and that's June 5th through 7th. The leadership retreat is July 10th through 11th. Still on their website, they don't
Yes,
have a
don't.
place listed, but we're anticipating Black Rock.
Mhm.
And then we always, every year we give student achievement awards, and it's for people in the community or teachers or staff that we think contribute to the success of our students and help out the district a lot. And the two ladies that are here today, Tony Kerr and Margaret Chavez, we would like to present a plaque to y'all. Says Excellence in Student Achievement Award is from the Mexico School Board Association and our local school board. It says presented by the Mexico School Board Association in cooperation with local Board of Education in recognition of the astounding role played in improving student achievements for 2020. We do appreciate everything that y'all want to come up and present, and Selena, can you take a picture?
You're the Ryan today.
Yeah.
Stay up on the court.
Yeah, just-
You know what, you want us to cut it out? Thank
Yeah.
you all, we appreciate our partnership, we're very.
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
I don't know, I guess Tony, you first.
Okay,
Cheese.
got it?
Got it? Okay.
I should have wrote that in the student.
I know.
Oh,
I was
okay.
gonna- I thought about it.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. And then y'all want to get in here and get a picture with the whole board. Yeah.
We all fit. I think so.
Yes.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Ready?
Huh.
Again.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you
guys.
guys, appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much.
I feel like my eyes are closed.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't look for eyes.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Too bad, okay?
The meeting goes on. I don't wanna be on the
Yeah.
front page.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Jesse, you should have been in the picture. You're everywhere with your mom.
Item number 6, consent agenda. Approval of accounts payable and payroll liability transactions.
Any questions on any of the checks?
I didn't have any.
I didn't have any either.
Okay.
Well, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve accounts payable and payroll liability transactions.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Plowman, seconded by Mrs. Esquivel, all in favor?
Aye.
Did you say any opposed?
You're good.
Okay, approval of budget adjustment requests.
Yes, we have a few of them. Not in here, this last month, so.
Yeah.
The first one is a decreased bar, and that's just truing up our numbers with the state SEG. And that's off our 40, 80, 120 day counts. The next one is an increased bar of $1,000. And it's an initial, it says increase, but it's an initial bar for the Level Up Reading Challenge. It's just the same budget code as something else, so that's why it has to show as an increase. The next one is another increased bar. And this budget's rental income, $14,490 for the year. An increased bar, the next one is an increased bar for food service for $1,543. And this is to budget actual revenue. The next one's another food service adjustment for $52,652. And it's just to budget the fiscal year 25 revenue and increased bar. And then the next one again is food service. And it's an increased bar for $12,185. And it's a different account code. It's same food service, but different account code, so different bars. And then the next one, and the last one is increase to Title I, $22,987. It's the final award and carryover for the title monies. Any questions on any of those? Okay. That's all of them.
A motion for the approval. Adjustment requests. I'll make that motion to approve the budget adjustment request.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Escobar, seconded by Mr. Plowman, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We'll move on to action items. Discussion on approval.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but also on there is the blanket bar approval for the end of the year.
We're not there yet. It's in the
Oh,
action.
okay, I'm
items.
sorry. All right.
Yeah, they wouldn't be the
Okay.
regular bar, it's in the action items.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, no worries.
that was discussion on approval of the speech language pathology. Alright.
So our speech pathologist has decided to go elsewhere this year or next year. And she's done a great job. We really hate to see her go, and we've had no we've had no applications, so we're gonna have to go out for RFP to see what contract was won. And we might have to do remote this year as well. I mean, we can't find one to come in person. So I just need approval to submit. Right now, we have it set up to be issued tomorrow if the board approves it, and to have everything back by July 19th or June 19th. So,
Okay.
so we can act on it. By the 23rd, I think is the day we're supposed to finalize it and pick somebody.
I'll make that motion to approve the SLP girl or RFP.
Yeah,
Am I saying that right?
yes, ma'am.
Too many letters right there.
I'll second.
Motion by Mrs. Escobar, seconded by Mr. Plowman, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We'll move on to discussion and approval of policy IKFB, graduation exercises.
Right, this is a policy that takes effect now, just about regalia for Native Americans. You know, it allows them to wear their regalia to a graduation ceremony. That is that policy.
I'll make a motion to approve policy IKFB graduation exercises.
And I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Plowman and seconded by Mrs. Escobar, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We'll move on to discussion and approval of policy JK, student discipline.
So this goes along with the previous one, just adds to the discipline policy that a student cannot be punished for wearing a regalia for identified with tribal affiliation.
I'll approve that. I'll approve the student. Oh, what is it? What are we on? Sorry. Discipline, student discipline.
Yeah.
Policy. I'll approve it.
Motion?
I'll second.
This. Motion by Mrs. Escobar, seconded by Mr. Plowman, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So we will move on to discussion and approval of a temporary blanket bar.
Right, it's that time of year where a lot of these bars have to be approved and gotten into bed before we can have another board meeting. So we do this every year, it's just a temporary blanket bar, and we bring every bar that we've done back to y'all. It'll be the June or the July meeting
Okay.
with all the bars that we've done and let you know about it. So we have to have it in order so that
So it cleans up the fiscal year.
close the fiscal year.
I'm not
I'll make,
Just kidding.
I'll make a motion to approve the operating or the blanket bar, temporary blanket bar.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Plowman, seconded by Mrs. Escobar, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to discussion and approval of the 2025-26 operating budgets.
Brian?
Hello,
Hi.
good evening. I'm going to share my screen. I think everyone has a printout, but just in case. Then there was one thing I kind of thought maybe I would share that I liked a little bit better than my presentation. So when we get there, I'll switch to that. But so good evening, everyone, members of the board, Superintendent Lucas. What we have here is our 2025-2026 budget. I will just kind of start off for those of you that have kind of been in our budget committee meetings. I know I probably started off more doom and gloom, but as I started getting through it, it wasn't as bad as I thought. So I'll start with that so that everyone can at least be a little bit optimistic as we're going through this. But I will say it was a tough year, probably the hardest we've been in the last 5-6 years, and I anticipate FY27 being even more challenging, but we can talk about that as we're going through this. And if anyone has any questions, just feel free to interrupt me. Everyone can see my screen, correct? I'll make it a little bit bigger.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yeah, good eyes, Johnny.
Can't read that or?
It's too small.
So just some highlights, and this is all related to the district. So we were able to balance the budget, and this was in collaboration with the administration, staff, parents. I believe we had 2, maybe 3 budget committee meetings, and we were able to balance the budget for FY26 on anticipated revenues and about 2.77 million of cash carryover for FY26. There were some mandatory increases as a result of the legislature. So all staff are receiving a 4% mandatory pay increase. And just to kind of clarify, so when I built this budget, from Dr. Lucas all the way down, I budgeted a 4% increase just so we're all on the same page. There are some other increases that are being built into this. Teacher minimums have increased to 55,000 for a level 1, 65 for a level 2, and 75,000 for a level 3. The unit value that was used to determine the SEG, that's our operating revenue, it did increase by about 3.78% to 6801 and 35 cents. That's compared to the current year of 65.53 and 75 cents. Other things that I'll note is there was some significant increases to our insurance. So health insurance did go up about 10%, dental about 4%, vision was pretty much flat. And then the risk insurance that the district pays to NIMSIA, that's basically our annual insurance payment, that went up about 14.21%. I do have a little note on here that the state did add to our SEG a new English learner multiplier. It's, without getting, it's kind of like some things went down and some things went up, but I did want to include that because that was in the legislative session. Below, I have some more just district specific items. So overall, our SEG actually decreased in FY26 compared to FY25 by about 2.7%. And we'll go through that in a little bit more detail here in a bit. Part of the reason is the school size adjustment. We lost about 12.43% in our funding compared to the prior year. Some of that is enrollment and related. We did have a decrease in our ancillary FTE, and then I talked about the NIMSIA risk increase. Some other things to note, some of this is the same as last year. All schools must meet 1,140 instructional hours. They do have multipliers for K-12 and for K-12 plus, but we do not participate in those. $15 minimum hourly rate for all school employees, $25,000 minimum salary for all instructional assistants or educational assistants. And then the last thing that I'll note regarding the mandatory increases is the principal increases, as these are by statute tied to a level 3 teacher salary. And because that level 3 teacher minimum has increased to 75,000, we now have new minimums for principals. Just the highest one, the high school is now 123, 750, middle school 108, 750, and elementary 93,750. Here I just have a kind of a big picture summary. So overall, if you were to take every fund, the budget for the district is about $16,126,471. That includes projected revenue of about 10.9 million, and then also projected cash carryover of 5.3 million. Keep a note that that 5.3 million cash carryover, that's all funds. That's going to be our capital outlay, that's our debt service, our operating. That's any fund that can carry cash is included in that number. SCG decreased by about 203,000. And there are different types of funding that we get. And I kind of broke them into various categories here. We have our general fund, which I consider to be the things that we need to operate the school. So our operational fund, our transportation. I included the ad valorem tax that we get from the county in that, because that can be used for operations, athletics, and then food services. And so total operating revenue for our general fund was about 11 million. And then in addition to our operating funds, we also get special revenue funds. Those are going to be grants or anything like that. I included some funding that we get from the state in there, but for purposes of the budget, I try to only include funds that I can reliably count on us receiving year after year. And so those being Title I, Idea B, fresh fruit and vegetables, Title II, Title IV, our rural low-income school, CTE, pre-K, and Medicaid. And Medicaid, I will kind of keep an eye on just because I keep hearing things that, might get cut, it might not. But total special revenue funds, about 1.7 million. And then lastly, our capital outlay funds. And I did include the debt service here just for simplicity purposes, but bond fund about 173,000. That might be lower. These are all kind of estimate, like ending cash, and I think that the anticipation or the plan is that maybe we'll go out for a bond sale in the fall. I did not budget for that in here, so if that happens, we'll do an increased bar when that happens. SB 9, 715,000, and then of course our debt service of about 2.2 million. And then I did include the cash that's held by our student activity funds. So altogether, that's where we get that 16.1 million. So here's a little pie chart to kind of show the breakout. Almost 70% of our actual budget is consisting of our general fund, 11% of our special revenue, 19% for our capital and debt service, and then just 1% for our activity funds. So that's the total budget. Now I'm going to kind of go through just the revenue piece, and then we'll go through the expenditure piece next. So revenue, I have here just a list of the funds that I did include in the budget, which we kind of just went through. Some of these awards weren't available at the time that we put together the budget. And so for those items, like I think Idea B actually came out at the end of the day on Friday. I usually just budget next year what we got this year. And I think it actually probably went down a little bit now that we actually got the allocation. Is that right, Dr. Lucas?
Yes, it went down to about 195. So
about $14,000 difference. So we'll have to adjust that. But usually when I don't have the award in front of me, I'll usually budget at least what we got in the current year. And so here I just kind of have just a comparison year to year. So FY25 being the current year, FY26 being the year that we're talking about for the budget, and just kind of showing a comparison with any changes between the 2 years.
Transportation
Program.
down.
a little bit, yeah. How much did transportation go down? Was it about 5 or 7,000?
32,900.
32,000 went down 32.
That one's weird because they don't share with us how they fund that or how they calculate that. And I wish they would, but it seems to be short at a lot of schools that I work with.
Yeah.
Program cost review. So what this is, and at the very back of our packet, there's an appendix, and in that appendix, you'll see what's referred to as a 910B5. That's the state's formula for calculating our operating revenue. And that's kind of the result of the legislative session. There's all these multipliers and factors and all these different things where you get funded X amount if you have this many kids in SPED and this many in kindergarten. That's all included in that 910B5. And so what I have here is just kind of a what we call a program cost review. Those of you that were in the budget committee have already seen this, but I like to show this because it breaks down our operating revenue by all those different lines that are included in that formula. And then we can really just kind of look at it line by line and see where we added money or where we decreased in funding. And so on the far left in the actual section, that's our actual enrollment, our 8120 day, and for FY25, and then what we're projecting for FY26. And so you can kind of see, I'm sorry, for FY, it's almost like a year behind. So FY24, then our average 8120 day for FY25 is what they use as the input for next year. And so you can see the biggest things really, we did have a decrease in enrollment of about 20.5 students in grades 1 through 12. That's really going to be the key theme as to why I feel like we've decreased in funding. But the other thing that I'll say too is, they didn't fund the increases that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation to start with. But on top of having those mandatory increases, we also had a decrease in enrollment. And so these are the things that at the beginning of my budget process were kind of leading me towards that stressful attitude. But as you'll see, as we go on, the district was prepared for this. Program units is taking that membership and then multiplying it by whatever those factors are that the legislative session has put together. Some of them are bigger than others. Our TCI, for example, it is a multiplier. And so anytime you can have a multiplier in your formula, it does translate into big dollar amounts. And in this instance, you can see it can also take away big dollar amounts. And so TCI, we actually lost about 80,000, 79,290. And that can be from a handful of things, such as maybe we lost a level 3 teacher that was being paid out of operational. But the way TCI works is that multiplier is higher the more level 3 or level 2 teachers you have in your operational fund. And so for those reasons, we try to pay for those individuals out of operations rather than having them paid for with a grant fund, say such as Tidal, or in the past maybe ESSER funds, because then we're not able to get the TCI multiplier that they bring by being that high licensure level. And at the bottom, you can kind of see here the decrease. I think 243,000 is what we're calculating as the difference between the prior year, or I should say current year, and next fiscal year. So, not huge, but at the same time, when you take into account the mandatory increases, it does add up. Let's see. Now I'll move on to the expenditures. So like I said before, we were able to balance the budget for FY26 expenditures. The way that we were able to do that is we did have to use about 1.5 million of our cash carryover. And so I am anticipating or estimating that we will finish this year, FY25, June 30th, with about 2.77 million in cash carryover in our operating fund. The only thing I'll say on that is it is an estimate. So when the audit's completed in the fall, that's usually what we'll get our final cash, our audited cash. And then in the wintertime, about January, that's when you'll see us do those cash carryover bars. And really the purpose of those is to true that up from what I'm estimating of 2.7 to whatever the auditors say this is what you actually ended the year with. I'm also anticipating that we'll end the year with about 412,000 in our SB9 as cash carryover and 1.2 million in our debt service. I have on the bottom just kind of a pie chart to show the expenditures by function code, and this is just for the operational fund, and it does not include the cash carryover. So about 61% of our operational budget is being allocated to the classroom, or I'm sorry, instruction, and 9% to the classroom. So about total 70% of our operational budget is being allocated to the classroom. 12% for administration, 6% for central services, and 12% for building and plant. The state does require that we do it what they call like a zero budget. So we do have to budget not only all of our revenues, but also the cash that we're carrying over. And so that 2.7 million is fully budgeted for purposes of submitting this to the state. And in a future slide, I'll show what I project us to end FY26 with as far as a cash balance. Here I have a bar chart just to kind of show year-to-year comparison, FY25 to FY26. Again, this is by function code, and this is for all funds, so not just operational. You can kind of see the increases in instruction. We actually decreased on classroom support, a little bit of an increase in administration, decrease in central services, a little bit of an increase in building and plant, and then a little bit in this other category. But the majority of the increase taking place in the instruction side. And then drilling down a little bit further, so going past the function code and going to the object code. So this really is kind of like the type of expenditure that we're talking about. Here I have just the operational. And so about 71% of our operational budget is being spent on compensation and benefits. 23% on contract services, and then 6% on supplies. And then down below, same thing, showing a comparison current year to what we're budgeting for FY26. And this is the total budget. And you can see the increase in compensation and benefits, small decrease in contract services, and then a little bit of an increase in our supply budget. Continuing with the expenditures, personnel cost. Now this one, you know, as I was talking to Dr. Lucas as we're doing the budget, I might actually have a little bit more in here than what we're actually going to go into the next year with. I think I have maybe a vacancy or two that, talking to Dr. Lucas, we might not need or maybe have already filled. So that's really going to maybe help with our cash balance if that is the case. But I felt like for purposes of presenting the budget, at least they're in here now. And if they are already filled or we don't need those vacancies, that's only going to help us. Total FTEs is 84.82. And I kind of just broke it into various categories. So I have our instructional, about 35 teachers. EAs, I think, is 3. And it kind of splits it. But these two categories at the top are really what is being put into the classroom, and then just our administration below. So try to show a little bit of a breakdown by FTE and position. And then at the very bottom, I have all of our stipends. So athletics, you can see the total cost of our athletic stipends. Student facilitators, those are people that are maybe managing like the yearbook club or whatever. And then our coordinators, and then just other stipends. And then going into non-personnel, this is where I actually wanted to show something different, but I mean, I'll look at this first and then I'll show you, because I have a spreadsheet that's a little bit more detailed. But I did want, for purposes of the PowerPoint or the PDF, to at least include the high level items. So ancillary, about 226,000. Other contract services, about 973,000. The biggest ones of that are, of course, our SFE for the food service, K-12 accounting, there's our auditing, there's various other contract services. I think our transportation contractors are in there. And then down at the bottom is really just kind of all of our utilities, property liability insurance, maintenance and repair. And then non-personnel costs, again, continued supplies and materials, instructional materials, software, board training, student travel, professional development. All of these items are included in the budget. And then I will pull up the spreadsheet. I know this is probably really small on the screen, but it's pretty much the same thing that we just looked at, but it's a little bit more detailed, where I kind of have it by capital and reserve, and just kind of wanted to show this because there is some more detail regarding the vendors that I have included in the budget. And to give some background on how we do this, we kind of look historically over the past couple of years, and we can kind of identify reoccurring contracts with particular vendors or just services that we know that we're going to need. And those are the ones that we typically try to build into the budget. So, like as an example, I can see in student travel, over the last 3 years, we average, about 55,000. I might increase that a little bit just because everything keeps costing more and more. But we'll, throughout the year, if it's too much or if it's too little, we'll have to do a budget adjustment request. But we try to give us a little cushion on things like that by looking at historical expenditures. Only thing I think, just gonna kind of scroll through this. So like air gas, P&M, City of Lordsburg, our IT, phone services, advertising with the Herald, our audit, our law firm, our legal. Every year we have to pay for like an AccuDisclose regarding our bond funds, our ancillary, so try to keep it as accurate as possible by looking at what I can identify having spent in the past. Duncan Unified School District, this is our out-of-state tuition. It's kind of a wash. We pretty much just pay them what the state funds us for the students that they serve. That's about 362,000. And then the last thing I'll say, I guess, regarding this is that none of this is set in stone, and so we can adjust it throughout the year. But this is to get us that starting budget going into FY26. And then lastly, and this was really interesting to me, this last on our operational fund balance, it was just crazy to me how much this has increased over the past couple of years. Um, I went all the way back to 2017, and I even had to like triple check. I pulled up every audit and I said, is this right? Because it's, this is just such an odd looking graph. And what I could attribute this to is the ESSER funds, and I would attribute this also to the administration um, identifying that those funds were going to go away. I think a lot of districts that I'm seeing maybe hired a little bit too crazy during those ESSER fund years and now are in a position where they're overstaffed. I can say that Lordsburg never did that. And I think that type of planning ultimately is what led to these large increases in our cash carryover over the past 3 years was really those ESSER funds um, being strategically used to build up our cash carryover. Because I think in 2022 we were down to about 250,000, and so that I would attribute as to what's really our saving grace going into FY26, having that cash available to balance the FY26 budget. Like I said before, we had to use 1.5 million of this 2.7 to just do all the increases and everything that we needed to put into the budget. And we looked at the non-personnel, you can kind of see there's not a bunch of extra things in there. Um, so that was very nice to have as I was doing the budget. But with that being said, using 1.5 million of this 2.7, we just all need to be very diligent in monitoring the budget throughout FY26 because that's not a path of sustainability that we can continue to use that much cash every year. So we'll be watching the budget this year. We'll hope that something changes in the legislative session, or maybe our enrollment maybe stops decreasing, kind of flattens out, or maybe we get more kids. There's all these unknowns that can happen, but Dr. Lucas and I have talked, and the board's aware. I guess we'll just keep an eye on this month over month and make sure that we're prepared for FY27 because I would anticipate that being a challenging year. If we go into that having to use more cash, but again, this large cash carryover was very helpful in me balancing this budget. And then down below, we have our 910B5. This is the document where we discussed earlier. This is the actual state document that is provided to us for our operating revenues. And then lastly, our salary schedules. So increase the base level for each one to the minimums, and then ensure that every staff got 4% increases is what is being presented here. And with that, that's our FY26 budget. Does anyone have any questions regarding anything? Anything I can elaborate on? I want to thank everyone for all of your hard work. And I was thinking about this before I presented, but it's working with districts like you guys that make this worth it for me. I appreciate all of you guys and the team that we get to work with. You guys are awesome. And so I really enjoy getting to work with you all and working with the district. Everyone's great. And you're kind of like the reason why I do this is clients like you guys. So thank you all.
Sir?
Thank you, Brian.
Thumbs up, Brian. Do we know how many students are in Duncan schools?
Is it the kids from Vernon that go there?
Yeah, the kids from Burton, is it about 80, I think, is that what, if I remember on that?
I can pull it up real quick because we actually just sent it to the state.
Or was it
Is there that
60?
many?
No,
Is it 80?
no, I guess.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Wait, that's
I don't think there's 80 people in Vernon.
There's about 100 and something volunteers.
Yeah.
The hard part is if we, because it is a lot of money that we pay to them, but if we didn't, it was about 70 students.
About 70.
We would have to bus them into the district, which would be the hard part. And assuming they even stay, versus driving to Duncan, I guess. But yeah, 70 students. It's almost 500,000 in state money.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Mhm. And that's what they report to you, Brian? Duncan?
Yeah, so we have a contact there that gives us basically the equivalent of their like
So more than half of
40, 80, 120-day counts. And then they basically invoice us whatever they count times our unit value. So if our unit value goes up, then our bill goes up. If our unit value goes down, our bill goes down.
Mhm.
And last year, for example, I think we were invoiced 400 something thousand, but then the state only paid us 360. So Dr. Lucas and the district at Duncan, we just kind of agreed that we're only going to pay you what we get funded for you guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're not gonna send any extra. back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Any other questions? No. Thank you, Brian. We don't have any other questions.
All right, if anything comes up, let me know. Like I said, we'll watch this throughout the year. There should be, I believe, one document that I will have Dr. Lucas get everyone's signature and send back to me. That's part of us uploading the budget. Our budget is due to the state on Thursday. And so I'll make sure we get this uploaded, all the signed documents uploaded. Marie's already started working on inputting our calendar. So we should be good to go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 operating budget.
Motion by Mr. Plowman, seconded by Mrs. Esquivel. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We don't have anything for public forum, so the meeting is adjourned. 6:45.
I gotta go to work.
Perfect.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank y'all. Be careful.
Good night, y'all.